Okay, I had written something for this, but decided just to post that as a blog and decided to take a page out of that hack Jar Jar Abrams book and decided fuck it when in regards to how I was going to do this. It's important to broaden your horizon, is what I want to say for the most part. I say this mostly as it pertains to writing. It can be very helpful for writing, having not just knowledge of one field but multiple fields. For examples of this, I look to. Well, I would use Lovecraft as an example, but looking back, I don't know if he's the best example. I mean, he's a good writer, but not. But in regards to this, I don't think he is a strong example. I think a better example would be George R. R. Martin, despite the fact I hate the guy's guts, and J. R. R. Tolkien. Now, Tolkien was an interesting guy. Like, if I've only heard stuff about his life, and it is fascinating. This guy was from South Africa, I believe. Actually, it's kind of funny. The people who originally come from South Africa but go to other countries actually sometimes go and do great things, like Tolkien and Elon Musk. I believe that's something that me and Trolled Cat talked about once. But anyway, Tolkien, after he got there, his mother, I think, converted to Catholicism, and later she died. I think him and his brother were then raised by a priest. They made up languages as kids. Like him and his brothers did this. He went on to become a teacher at a university. He read stuff like the Kalevala and the Viking sagas. And he knew enough, and I'm pretty sure he had some knowledge of history as well. And he was a very big studier of languages for the most part. Now, this factors into how he became a good writer because he later employed this along with some people think his experience in the First World War also may have contributed to that. I kind of believe that. I find that very plausible. Yeah, so these contributed to his writing. And the funny thing is, I don't know if he had written anything before that. He was a poet. He had written some poems. Him and his friend would actually exchange poems just to judge them with one another. And what else? Oh, god dang it, I'm forgetting stuff now. But the funny thing is, he actually wrote those things to entertain his children. And the first time he wrote that down was because a student left a page blank for him to grade. And all of a sudden he just writes down, "In the hole in the ground lived a hobbit." So part of it is serendipity, I guess, if you believe the story. And some part of it is stuff he learned on his own before writing. Like, again, I still have to read his biography and stuff on him as a person. I want to get the book. I think it talks about his time in the Great War. But anyway, there was that, and his knowledge of languages, and the fact he and his brothers would make up these languages as kids. He later did this as well with his stories. I mean, really, the amount of languages this guy knew were insufferable. Almost, it's unimaginable that anyone could know the amount of languages. Like, I wrote them down, but I didn't print off a copy when I decided to do this recording. But point is, he took being a polyglot and a polymath to a whole nother level. And he did it exceptionally well. Also, actually, no, scratch that. I already talked about that in my work debate video. But anyway, there was him, and then George R. R. Martin. He actually went into writing, but I think for a time he had to take a break from it because the story, I think, almost ruined his career. So that was like the Mountains of Madness for him, basically. Like, apparently that one ruined Lovecraft's career, even though it's a really good story. But anyway, he actually studied a lot of history. Like, the War of the Roses is a very big influence on the Game of Thrones books, or A Song of Ice and Fire. Just in the terms of, like, there were these constant shifting of allegiances and people and players in the game of politics. I think Machiavelli was also an influence, and actually also Tywin, Tyrion's dad, he was based on the Hammer of the Scots, who was a very fucked up individual, from all accounts, or from what I've heard anyway. So just learning different things, I think, is very helpful and constructive. It really helps you. If anything else, it's a good hobby. Like learning new information. Like, for me, it's history and mythology. I love these two probably more than I can describe. I find them both fascinating. Um, like, and some mythologies don't get talked about enough. Like, we always hear about Greek mythology, but we never hear anyone talk about stuff like, say, Celtic mythology. Like, you rarely hear about Cuchulainn, whose life was one big natural disaster as far as I'm concerned. But we never hear about the Welsh mythology, although I think Arthurian legend was preserved by Wales or poems. I think. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. But point is, it's very useful. I mean, one of the things I like about Star Wars before Darth Disney got its greedy hands on it was it took stuff from mythology, history. Like my favorite faction, the Mandalorians, they are basically an amalgamation of three factions from history: the Celts, or Celts, depending on which ones you're looking at, because of the clan system they use. They have similarities to the Spartans in that they were dedicated to war and combat, and they're like the Hun in that they never stay in one place for too long, I think. Like, I'm just now going back to learning EU stuff, so. And in the movies, like, George Lucas took inspiration from a myriad of places. Like, I've heard people say the Akira Kurosawa films, the old serials, Humphrey Bogart. Which, by the way, I remember their reviews said that Humphrey Bogart was an influence on Han Solo. I can see it. I doubt that's the only thing that influenced Han Solo, but I can definitely see it. The assholishness is definitely present. But, so yeah, just do different things, or at the very least, look at at other fields that may interest you. Who knows? You might enjoy it more than you think. Or if you're just looking for inspiration, try that. I know my recommendation is always history and mythology because it is fascinating to learn. I mean, history's kind of fucked up though. Like the stuff you hear about Vlad the Impaler, Jesus Christ. But, yeah, I think that's all I want to say is just do not confine yourself to one field of interest. Look for other fields that may interest you. Like, I've tried this myself. I've found fields that bore me to tears. Like, science does not interest me. Chemistry does not interest me. Astrology, well, it could interest me if I actually gave it a shot, but oh well. It's just always look for different things and never be... Well, I would say don't be condescending like Alan Moore, but what the heck? Or Nerd Sync, but what the heck? Just give it a shot, especially if you want to go into creating something. Then I would definitely recommend this. Or again, for just personal amusement, that is also a good enough reason to do it. But yeah, sorry if this one's not as you would be expecting from me, but I decided, you know what, fuck it, I already did the blog, I might as well do a video on it, so have a nice day, and remember the game was rigged from the start. Pray for sanity.